So Carlos Sainz is going to Williams for 2025. After all that song and dance about trying to find the best car in the short term, something with championship winning capabilities, he signs with the 9th place team. This might seem a lot like your friend who recently got unexpectedly divorced, saying he was going to take his time and be really picky about choosing his next life partner, only to show up a few weeks later with a 50-year-old stripper on his arm who you can tell used to be really hot, but hasn't been an attractive prospect in over a decade. Let's talk about that. Welcome to Fiends, where the F1 never ends, just like the silly season in 2024. Carlos Sainz has been performing at an exceptional level for a couple years now. There was a stretch of 21 races where he was the only driver to beat Verstappen, and he did it twice. You'd think that he'd be a hot commodity that Ferrari would want to hold on to, but it's not often that a 7-time world champion is willing to jump teams, and we all know Ferrari wasn't about to sack their golden boy. So they kicked Carlos to the curb, and his rebound to Williams is baffling on the surface, but the implications of this move are actually quite intriguing. For starters, he signed a multi-year deal, which, as far as I can tell, is for 2025 and 2026. This means Williams showed him something that makes him confident they have something up their sleeves for the new regulations. If they didn't, he probably would have only taken a 1-year deal and continued to try to find a better team for 2026. Now, this is complete speculation, but I think that Vowles probably showed him a new hire that gave him the confidence to throw his lot in with Williams over the other teams that were courting him. And I have a wild guess as to who that is, but before I make that speculation, let me set the scene. We know for a fact that Sainz was in talks with Red Bull, but they weren't able to offer him Audi money. And Red Bull also seems to be on the decline. Their car is no longer dominant, even in the hands of the best driver on the grid, and their internal politics seem to be tearing the team apart from the inside. It's also no secret that Audi wanted Sainz, but couldn't convince him, and I don't blame him for balking at their offer. They can throw all the money in the world at him, but while Sauber keeps slipping further behind the pack, they are a massive gamble, and almost certainly not going to help him achieve his short-term goal of being in a winning car. Not to mention that Audi's new built-from-scratch engine is a huge unknown factor in this equation. Carlos has been incredibly picky and really taken his time trying to find a new seat. So this move to Williams comes as a shock given that they only have 4 points more than Sauber, which gives them a grand total of 4 points. I don't get the impression that Carlos was desperate to find a team for next season. So I think Williams made a huge $105 million pickup, and James disclosed who that was to get Sainz to sign with them. If you recognize that number, it's probably because that's the amount of money that Adrian Newey's new contract with an undisclosed team is worth. From what I've been able to find, someone senior at Ferrari kiboshed bringing Newey on board, and just a few days ago, David Coulthard declared that Adrian would go to Aston Martin, but Newey's manager, Eddie Jordan, said DC's comments were inaccurate and fanciful. Great choice of words, Eddie. Only time will tell if I'm right. But for Williams to get a driver who is in talks with a front-running team like Red Bull, who claims to be more concerned with getting a winning car than a huge paycheck, I can see Sainz following the kingmaker to whatever team he signs with. I also think Williams would be appealing to Adrian for numerous reasons. For starters, during his last stint with Williams, Newey was promised a lot of authority that he did not receive, in areas such as choosing the drivers. This could be a great opportunity for Newey to get a do-over at the team he once made champions. And I can see Vowles, unlike Frank Williams, actually respecting the agreements he makes. So it's also possible that, if Newey has signed with Williams, that he actually had some input into the courting and signing of Carlos Sainz. And let's not forget the Vowles factor. James Vowles is an obscenely intelligent and incredibly charismatic leader. He was a key part of Mercedes' success in the turbo hybrid era, and he's been pulling Williams up by their bootstraps with no signs of stopping. He seems intent on restoring Williams to their former glory, and that kind of person attracts top talent, which is why I believe it's even possible for the backmarker team to pick up key players like Newey and Sainz. But even if Williams didn't get Newey, there's another factor that makes them more appealing than Audi: their engine. Williams is supposedly sticking with Mercedes power units until 2030, and Mercedes engines are a pretty safe bet. They're currently powering the fastest car on the grid, McLaren, as well as Aston Martin, who last year, at times, were outperforming the Works team itself. This bodes well for Mercedes customer teams, showing that Merc is a great engine supplier who is able to work with their customers to help them produce a fast overall package. something we don't see with, say, Ferrari, for example. So on the surface, it might seem like Sainz showed up with a rebound, but it may turn out that he's actually the gold digger, and that old woman on his arm actually has a massive inheritance coming in from her wealthy uncle Red Bull. And now that we've speculated on why he made the move, let's talk about the implications of this announcement. It's a well-known fact that Carlos Sainz was the cork in the bottle for this year's drivers' market, which means that silly season is about to kick into full gear for the summer break. Or more accurately, it can finally wrap up. With Ocon's recent signing with Haas and Hulk with Audi, there aren't that many seats left. Mercedes needs to announce their number 2, as does Audi, Alpine, and whatever the hell Red Bull wants to call their second team next year. The remaining drivers without a contract are Bottas, Magnussen, Zhou, Sargent, and Ricciardo. I think it's pretty likely that Sauber keeps Bottas for some stability and a point of reference, and also because he's actually pretty good, but I don't see Kevin, Logan, or Guan Yu getting seats. One thing I'm really happy about though, is this means Daniel Ricciardo is not going to Williams. He doesn't have a contract, and a lot of people thought he might snatch up Sargent's seat. But now that that's off the table, I think he might get a shot at Sergio's seat. And if you're interested in why I think Red Bull should gazump Checo with the Honey Badger, watch this video next, where I go in depth on the topic. I'll see you there.